You always love a good, like, winery dog or cat.
Oh, yeah.
And they had both.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's an A+ in my book.
Hello and welcome to the Worldwide Honeymoon Travel Podcast, the podcast that talks about all things couples travel, including destinations, tips, advice, and more. I'm Chris.
I'm Kat.
And this is episode number 175.
And Chris gave me COVID.
That has not been proven.
Are you kidding me? Chris came home from a bachelor party where I'm assuming that's where you got it. And then lo and behold, a few days later I got it. Even though I quarantined, like I threw you into our bedroom because it has a bathroom attached to it and was like, you stay in there. I sanitized the crap out of everything in the, like where I was staying and like the rest of the house. Wore my mask anytime I was around you. Like
I wore
to
my
like
mask too.
Yeah, to drop off food. And then I still caught it. Like I thought that I was in the clear after a few days because you went into quarantine the second you tested positive on Tuesday. And on Friday, gets to Friday, still feeling good, ran 4 miles. I was like, yeah, this is great. Like, yeah, the only times I left the house was just to go for runs and stuff. So like, I was like, yeah, I'm still feeling good. I wake up Saturday morning, I have drainage and a sore throat. And I was like, oh no. And then I tested positive.
Yeah, I don't know where you got it.
Okay. My guess is when we went for a run and were hanging out before you tested positive. Because you came home not feeling great.
Yeah. I mean, but I tested negative when I came home too.
Yeah.
Fun times.
It's crazy. It's my second bout because I had a mild case in November. The case I had in November was like nothing compared to this. I mean, this, knock on wood, hasn't been too bad. I'm on day 2, but the one in November, I lost my smell for like 5 days and I felt completely fine other than that. So, and I did my 10-day quarantine and everything, and you never got it, which was good because we were going to Costa Rica. And I was like, do not come near me. But yeah, now I had to cancel France because I was supposed to go to France here later this week. And
Cancel a trip to France.
Well, yeah.
Not canceling.
France. Canceled.
Canceled.
No, I canceled. My sister and I were supposed to go to the south of France, and we're rescheduling that for September. So at least it's not completely canceled. It's just rescheduled, but I'm bummed. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sucks. How was your quarantine so far? We're no longer quarantining from each other because, well, you're still getting over it and I have it now.
Yeah. Yeah, it was what it was.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot. I read, I think, more than I have in a long, long time. Yeah,
yours is, well, quarantine now is like 5 days and then you can start testing out of it like after that. Mine was like 10 days regardless. And I remember being like so bored during my quarantine because I felt fine. My smell came back 5 days later and I just had 5 extra days in there. I worked a bunch.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of movies and that was about it. But anyway, so now we're just hanging out at home and trying to recover from this. But any highlights from the last time we recorded?
Honestly, the bachelor party was a ton of fun.
I bet it was.
It was a good time.
You guys went to Milwaukee.
Yeah, went to a Brewers game, which was nice, and just kind of explored the city. So a lot of fun.
Yeah.
How about yours?
Well, yeah, last weekend I went down to Cincinnati and went kayaking with my friends and got to catch up with one of my good friends. So that was really great. Also having Professor to myself for the first part of the week while you were in quarantine, I had Professor, and that was nice. It was just the two of us.
Did he like it?
He did. He was like glued to me because he was, if any of us is gone, the other one, I mean, he's always like, where are they? And he's like glued to the other person.
Yeah.
So he's been a little cutie this week.
Yeah.
But yeah, those two things were kind of the highlight. Low light was definitely catching COVID, but
man,
right now I feel a lot better. I felt horrible all day yesterday, and today I feel better, less tired.
Good.
I do feel like I have a bad head cold, which is not fun, but
You sound like you smoked like 2
I
packs
do.
yesterday.
I sound like I've had a rough couple of days out at the bar.
Do you remember that I think it's in Monsters, Inc., where the lady's like, Mike Wazowski. Do you remember
That's
that?
what I sound like. I just feel like I'm sweating a lot. Like I'm having hot flashes too, which is really just not fun. I'll be fine and then I'll just start profusely sweating.
Profusely sweating.
Okay. All right. Anyway,
Let's talk about
more fun
happier
things.
times.
Yes, happier times earlier this year.
Yeah, when we spent 2 days in Piedmont. So we are going to talk all about how to spend 2 days in Piedmont.
Yep.
How we spent our 2 days in Piedmont, and recommendations for visiting Piedmont. So before we get into like the thoughts prior, first impressions, all of that kind of stuff, some Piedmont fast facts.
I was going to say, yeah, what is Piedmont, Christopher?
It is an area in northwestern Italy. And if you are going to go to Piedmont, there's generally 2 reasons that you are going to go. The first being wine, and the second being truffles. Those are the 2 big draws to this area of Italy. In the autumn, that is truffle season, truffle hunting season, and you can go out and actually hunt for truffles. We did not do that because it was not in season. Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, wine you can drink year round. So generally it is food and drink that brings travelers to Piedmont in Italy.
And what's the type of wine that is famous in this region?
Nebbiolo. Dolcetto is famous in the region. The 2 more prominent villages are Barolo and Barbaresco that are in the region. So lots of really, really good wine.
Nice. All right. Well, now that you guys know what Piedmont is, let's talk about our thoughts prior to arrival. What are your thoughts, Christopher?
Sure. So I was imagining a smaller, more relaxed atmosphere. And I wrote down the beginning of indulgence.
Oh, boy.
Yes. I was expecting to eat and drink a lot. I was expecting it not to be a terribly large area in terms of like population density. I was expecting it to be like well visited, like popular for people to come and see. So I didn't think it was going to be empty or anything. But I definitely didn't think that it was going to be like a big city because it's just not, right? So yeah, what were your thoughts prior?
Well, knowing it's a wine region, and most famous wine regions, not that it's like super famous like Burgundy or even Tuscany and stuff, it's still like a pretty well-known wine region. They're always very beautiful, very hilly. You have vineyards just everywhere, absolutely stunning. And of course it is. I thought Alba would be a pretty charming town. Definitely not off of the tourist radar completely, but far less crowded than Milan, where we went to the day before, or even Rome, or even places in Tuscany. Some of the smaller towns in Tuscany tend to bring in a bigger crowd than Alba. But yeah, I mean, my thoughts were that it was going to be very beautiful, that the town was going to be all quaint and adorable with cobblestone streets and all of that stuff. So I was very much excited to drive around and see the beautiful scenery, because we visited many wineries and many wine regions and have never been disappointed with the way that they look. They're always very, very beautiful. But with that being said, were your thoughts prior to arrival, did they match with your first impressions?
They did. So we took the train from Milan over to Piedmont. The stop that we were at was Alba. And it really was a charming, smaller city, being Alba, that was surrounded by just sprawling, breathtaking countryside in every direction. So the first impressions were really Alba. And then as we got out more into the countryside and wine country, it was just expansive. And I mean, the River Po runs through, and between the mountains and the hills and the greenery and the vineyards and the river, it was just stunning. It really was. So I was blown away in my first impressions. Were yours similar?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was even better than I imagined. It's very beautiful. Of course, it's the hilly vineyards and all of that stuff, but there are towns with castles, and there's beautiful hill towns with castles. I did not know this at the time, but hazelnut is very big in that region. So we kept passing by all these vineyards, and I remember asking our driver during our tour what that was, and they were all hazelnut trees. So hazelnuts are very big there. I guess that makes sense because Ferrero Rocher, I guess, started there, the company and all of that. So really beautiful. The town was gorgeous. I don't recall seeing very many tourists at all, but we also weren't there during like prime tourist season, which is the autumn months.
Yes.
But still very beautiful. Lots of locals. It was not overran by tourists by any means. But yeah, gorgeous, quaint town, very colorful, beautiful squares, random ancient ruins in the town that you just walk past.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alba was super charming. We finally, on this trip, got to have coffee the Italian way, where you stand at the actual bar, or cafes there are called bars, and you can go and stand at the bar and have your cup of coffee and head out, which was kind of fun too. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, I'd say my first impressions kind of blew my thoughts prior out of the water. It was very, very beautiful. Not nearly as crowded as I thought it was going to be. But yeah.
Yeah. Refreshing in a sense.
Very refreshing, especially since we had just come from Milan. And Milan was, especially as we got close to the Duomo, completely packed.
It was a zoo.
There was so much going on. We stood in line just to go up go up the Duomo to the roof. I think 2 hours in line?
No, not that
Or like
long.
an hour and a half?
An hour.
It felt like a long time. It was also very hot. Yeah, those are my first impressions of Piedmont.
Awesome. So before we jump into what we did each day, why don't you knock out the logistics? How to get there, where to stay, when to visit.
Yeah, so how to get there, where to stay, when to visit. This is a quick one. Flying to Milan, then you can easily take the train. I think we did Trenitalia to Alba, and there's usually a stop in Turin. So you start, or Torino. You stop there, you change trains, and then you head into Alba. From there, we stayed at Casa Agnesi. Good price. It was about $150 a night. Really good place. It was a cute little bed and breakfast. I think there was only 3 or 4 rooms.
Yeah.
There. The host was super nice. His wife would make breakfast in the morning for us. He would make us coffee, would chat with everybody. Super warm and welcoming. I remember when we checked in, he was super nice and showed us great suggestions for places to eat. He would make reservations for us, places to drink or to explore, cool things to see, and lots of other tips. It was really cute, and the room was really nice too. So a really fun little bed and breakfast that you can stay at while you're in Alba. And then as far as when to visit, October is probably the best time. That's the harvest season for the grapes. It's also a great time to see the vineyards with the fall foliage. That's always really beautiful, but most importantly, it's the white truffle season. So black truffle, I feel like, is a lot more common. White truffle is more rare. It's more expensive, and it is definitely very prevalent during the fall season. So you can actually arrange to go truffle hunting. I believe there are dogs that you go with, and you find white truffles and things like that. Apparently, white truffles also do not last very long. Because we were hoping to try some white truffles while we were there on food. Unfortunately, it's not in season, so we were not able to try it. But lots of great food in Alba regardless. And honestly, anytime from spring through the fall is a good time to visit. It was a little bit cheaper when we went because it was in May versus like the height of summer. And still, it's very beautiful to go visit when the vineyards are in full... they're fully decked out. It's not like in the winter where all the leaves are gone and everything's kind of withered away. Still very beautiful. But if you really want to go during prime time, see the beautiful colored vineyards in the fall and go truffle hunting, then probably October is your best time frame.
All right. So now we are going to talk about how we spent our 2 days in Piedmont. And we used a company called Alba Wine Tours. Mm-hmm. And they were fantastic. It's run by a husband and wife. And it was just absolutely an incredible way to really get a feel for Piedmont. So when we're talking about this, we're going to try and give like an overarching itinerary without giving away all of the actual details, because if you guys are going to Piedmont and if you are thinking of how you want to spend your time there, you should absolutely reach out to Alba Wine Tours and let them show you around, because we had an absolute blast with them. So on day one, we explored the Barbaresco wine region, but it wasn't just all about wine here. So we started off the morning exploring some of the neighboring areas. We visited a castle and we learned about some of the history of the area. We enjoyed a delightful espresso and some delicious hazelnuts, nougat, and gelato.
Yeah, and even that cafe that we went to was such like a local little cafe because it was in a tiny little hill town that was super charming. And we walk in, you see a family having breakfast because it was a Sunday morning. And so many people you could tell were regulars at this cafe. It was so much fun just to sit and listen. I also had, I believe, a hazelnut croissant.
You did.
Oh my gosh, it was so good.
Yeah, that was very good.
It was very delicious. Very good. Before we got gelato.
And nougat.
And nougat.
Yes. But the gelato, this was some of the best gelato I'd ever had. This is not a stop on the tour typically. We were just in the area and we said that they were open, so we would have gelato. The place was all rondo. Mm-hmm. Absolutely killer cassata cake gelato. Mm-hmm. That is something I will always remember, that I still think of. That was just, unreal. We explored the village of Barbaresco. We went up into the tower to see the just sprawling countryside.
And the river.
Around. And the river.
Cool.
Yeah,
cute
just
little farmer's market.
Incredible views. We also ate lunch, which split up the day from the morning to the afternoon, obviously. We visited a winery in the morning. We also visited a winery in the afternoon. The lunch was wonderful. It was cooked by the husband and wife that run Alba Wine Tours, and it was delicious. It was just, course after course. I think we had 4 courses, including dessert. Just delicious food, great conversation. We had some wine that we had bought at one of the wineries in the morning, which was wonderful. And we got to see another area of Piedmont that I think probably, but for this experience, we probably would not have gone into that area, which was very nice.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about the wineries a little bit. You don't have to give it all away. But
Sure.
The experience of tasting wine in Barolo, which we mentioned in the last episode.
Barbaresco.
Well, yeah. Well, in Piedmont in general.
Yeah.
Why we only did 2 a day versus, here in the U.S. you can do multiple wine tastings in a day because usually tastings are pretty tiny and you only get 4 little tastings. So you can do quite a few. That is not the case in Piedmont. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Sure. So I think in our 2 days in Piedmont, I think we sampled upwards of 45 different wines. Mm-hmm. So it was definitely a marathon. At each winery that we would stop at, we would have, upwards of 8 wines.
8 to 12 tastings. So
it's definitely a taste, and they have the spit buckets there, or the dump buckets. You don't have to finish all of your tastings, obviously. But it's just, each tasting room is so different. The wineries that we went to were smaller wineries, which I enjoyed. They had more intimate tasting rooms, lots of family pictures, and a lot of history that was shown on the walls, which was very nice. Also, the tours of the cellars and of the winemaking facilities. I always really enjoy that kind of stuff, just to see how different winemakers approach I'll say the same craft. But yeah, the winery in the morning that we visited was run by a father and son. Very nice. We tasted delicious wines there, and we actually ended up buying wine at every winery that we went to during this trip. And then in the afternoon, we did visit another winery, and this one I will share the name of. This was the Grosso Brothers winery. Between the morning and the afternoon, I mean, we were tasting wonderful Barbera d'Alba, Barbera d'Asti, Barbaresco, Dolcetto, Chardonnay. I mean, just wine after Nebbiolo, wine after wine after wine. And it was interesting because when you're doing the tastings, you can really taste the subtle differences in all of the wines, which kind of heightens the experience and makes them all more expressive, in my opinion, while also getting to know the people that you're tasting wine with, which is nice.
Yeah, and we had a lot of fun at the Grosso Brothers Winery because there was a whole group of Swedish people that came in. That I guess they do wine trips together every once in a while. And I think it was a group of 10 people?
8.
8. And they were so nice. And our guide kind of did it all, guided us all through the tasting because the Grosso brothers, they didn't speak English and stuff. So he was like, I know enough about the wine to just lead this tasting. So our guide kind of walked us all through it. And it was just a lot of fun. And we got to try a bunch of different wines and hang out with these people and learn all about their wine trips, because they were probably in their 50s or something.
Yeah.
And every 5 years they do a big trip somewhere, and they've been doing it since their 20s. And they rent a big old van and go to a wine region and all this stuff. And it was really fun to hear all the cool places they had been to in their van.
Yeah.
Driving from Sweden and all the wine that they had. I think they were we have 50 bottles of wine in our van now.
Way more than that.
Yeah, and they were
they said over 100. It was I think it was upwards of 300 bottles in the back of the van.
Yeah, and they're yep, and we're going to drive home tomorrow and stuff. So that was a lot of fun to get to do, and just, fun travel moment.
Yeah. But after a long day of wine tasting and exploring the Barbaresco area, we had dinner back in Alba at Osteria dei Sagnatori. This was an incredible meal. It felt like real home cooking.
Yes.
Very warm, very inviting, very filling. We had asparagus and potatoes with an anchovy sauce.
That was still my favorite appetizer that I've had that whole trip.
Really?
It was so good, yeah.
Over the potato salad? I thought you liked the potato salad.
No, I actually really liked my anchovies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We also had a veggie potato salad. You had gnocchi with gorgonzola cheese, and I had spinach ravioli, which was wonderful. We split tiramisu for dessert, which was also just incredible. I think that this was one of 3 or 4 different tiramisus that we had during this trip.
You're a big fan of tiramisu.
I love tiramisu. And we also split a Nebbiolo. Smaller restaurant.
Very affordable.
Very affordable.
Yeah, a lot of locals. It was a Sunday night, so a lot of people were there getting dinner with family and friends.
We had to wait. It was well worth the wait.
Yeah.
I would absolutely say that. But yeah, that was our first day in Piedmont, exploring the Barbaresco region.
Yeah. All right. So day 2, we woke up, and luckily we didn't have to get up as early, because day 1 we had to get up early and take the train from Milan, and we got picked up at the train station. So day 2, we got up and had that delicious breakfast at our bed and breakfast with our host giving us coffee and talking about all the different pastries and delicious things. It was very, very good. And then from there, we just kind of wandered around Alba in the morning. We hadn't really gotten to see too much of it the day before, between the wine tasting and then going to dinner. But yeah, we walked around. There's a big pedestrian street that was really beautiful. There's some charming squares. Just getting to admire all the architecture and the colors of the city. We got to do all of that before we got picked up, I think at 9:30 in the morning or so, for Barolo, or to explore Barolo this day.
Yeah, and I'm really happy that we explored Alba in the morning.
Yeah.
Because we also went on I'll say a late afternoon, early evening walk, and then a nighttime walk. And it was really neat to see the town at each different time of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really cute town. So from there we got picked up and went up to Barolo. We got to explore the village, which was adorable. I think something that really stuck out to me, especially the time of year that we went, was the smell of all of the villages, because there were so many flowers everywhere that it was very fragrant. But we went to Barolo Castle and explored the village. From there, we got to go to a wine shop, which had some of the region's most expensive wines that you could actually try on tap there for about 10 to 12 euros a taste. And it was really neat to get to try that and to see what those were like, since we definitely could not afford to buy a bottle of that. From there, we went and got coffee again at a nice little coffee shop and had it the traditional way, standing at the bar. And then after that, we zipped back in the car and went up to another town with a great castle in the middle that is now a restaurant, because in Piedmont, something that we learned was that there are so many castles that many of them have just been sort of transformed into other things. Some are hotels, some are museums, some are restaurants. One of them's a pizzeria. They just get kind of multi-purposed because what else are you going to do with all of those castles over the years? So we went to a castle. It has a restaurant, but there's also a wine shop, and that is where we got to try Cinato, which is kind of a liqueur. Very, very delicious. And from there, we went to our first winery, and that was the one that we were told ahead of time that you definitely want to age them. They're very strong tannic wines. They were very, very good. We definitely bought some bottles, but we will be aging them for a bit before drinking them. And then after that, we went to an agriturismo. And if you guys don't know what an agriturismo is, it is usually a working farm, and sometimes it is it's like a part hotel as well, so it'll be part bed and breakfast or a restaurant, but it is a working farm at the same time. So this place that we went to, it was called I Ride Restaurant, is part of this agriturismo, so a lot of farm-to-table cooking. We had the tasting menu there that was so good and so filling. We had more wine at this restaurant. But yeah, tell them about, did you have a favorite thing that you ate?
At the agriturismo?
Yeah.
The desserts were really good.
I know, the dessert was really good. It was a hazelnut, it was like a hazelnut gelato with like a hazelnut or chocolate kind of covering on top with, it was so good. Everything was just delicious that we ate there.
It was.
Honestly, I mean, it was a huge tasting menu. We were there for a couple of hours, I think.
Yeah.
And really just enjoying it. From there, we went to the beautiful hillside town of Lamora and got to go into this church that had like all of these legends about the Knights Templar and all of that stuff.
I geeked out for that.
Oh yeah, it was very like Da Vinci Code-esque, and he was talking about all of these like hidden things in the church that could mean these certain things. Very conspiracy theory-esque of this church, so that was kind of neat to see, as well as the beautiful town of Lamora, because the views are just gorgeous. From there, we went to our last winery of our trip, Stropiana, which I really liked. Stropiana, yeah.
Yeah.
And we tried a bunch of different Barolos and all sorts of wine there, and it was absolutely delicious.
They had my favorite wine that we tried during our entire 2 days.
Same, yeah. It was also just a fun
Reserva.
little family winery. There were pets everywhere. That was fun. Got to play with the dogs.
You always love a good like winery dog or cat.
Oh, yeah.
And they had both.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's an A+ in my book. From there, we went back to Alba. Well, we shipped our wine home. We stopped at this place to ship our 12 bottles home, which we were so nervous. Christopher was very nervous about it getting home, and it took about a couple weeks, but we got it eventually.
The only reason I was nervous about it getting home was the fact that they said, "Oh, we give you a tracking number." And I said, "Oh, that's great. Is it on the receipt here?" And they were like, "No, you'll get it via email tomorrow." And we were like, "Oh, okay, sounds good." And then we didn't...
You forget it's Italy.
Right. Well, we didn't get it for like...
a couple of
2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then we finally got it. And I was like, oh, okay. But that was the reason that I got nervous, because you had to hand write your information on a shipping form. And I was like, what if they couldn't read my handwriting? Even though I think I have very neat handwriting.
You do, but you've always had very, very tiny handwriting. And so it can be hard to read sometimes.
Well, and you can see my fear now.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. When you did it, I was like, oh no, what if they can't read it because it's too tiny? It's so small.
But it arrived safely here. It was, yeah. I mean, we have not had any of it, but we're probably due for that soon.
Oh yeah, I mean we've since received the wine. We're just letting it sit so it recovers from bottle shock, which is, I guess, what is bottle shock exactly again? I know you're not supposed to drink the wine for like a month or two after you receive it, after it being shipped and all of that stuff.
Right, just to kind of like let it settle and come back to equilibrium and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so, but we will be trying that soon. But anyway, we got back to Alba, strolled around in the evening, especially on that pedestrian street, and we got aperitivo, our first aperitivo of the trip, at Vin Cafe. And this is where we sat down and we saw all of these people with all these fun snacks. And I was like, oh, do we have to order that? And I was like, you know what? Actually, I have a hunch that it's like they give it to you when you order a drink. So we ordered our first cocktails of the trip. I think I got my Aperol Spritz. You got your Negroni.
Yep.
And then they dropped off those snacks and we got to snack on our aperitivo and we just enjoyed it. And then we wandered over to 21 or 21, how do you say it?
It means 21.
It means
I think
21.
It's 21.
Yeah, 21, and then it has like a .1 in the title.
It does, yeah.
But it's known for its seafood, and it was very, very delicious. I had roasted octopus. I also had some pasta with cuttlefish ink, and then with fava beans and peas and all of that stuff. And you had a roasted codfish, or I had roasted codfish.
Yeah.
Do you remember what you had?
I had the ink
Oh,
pasta.
That's right. Okay. So yeah, and we just tried each other's, and it was very delicious. I know my codfish had a fried zucchini flower on it, which was also very good.
Yeah, that was also very visually pleasing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this was on the Michelin guide, too. It's not a Michelin star, but it is in the guide as like a recommended restaurant. So very good. We had more Nebbiolo while we were there.
Barolo.
Oh, we had Barolo while we were there?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, nice. Yeah. But yeah, overall, fantastic restaurant. And then that evening, we took a nice stroll around. And then we went back to our hotel and went to bed because the next day we were off to our next destination. So it was a quick trip, but I feel like we definitely got to see and do a lot in our 2 days in Piedmont, both in and around Alba and the wine regions.
Yeah. And we specifically went here for Barbaresco and Barolo.
Yes, to try the wine.
Yes.
Because Christopher had learned about it during his like WSET training and was very excited when I was like, it's your turn to pick the trip. And he was like, I want to go to Italy and I want to go to Barolo and Barbaresco. I want to go to Piedmont and try this wine.
The king of wines.
Yeah. And I had never heard of it until your classes that you were taking. And so we were like, well, this is interesting. It'll be very different than Tuscany, which is the typical region a lot of people go to in Italy, which is also very beautiful and lovely with good wines and stuff. But, yeah, I think it was a great trip and it was really fun to get to experience that part of Italy.
It was, and it was much different than the other stops that we made in Italy, which also made it very special.
Yeah, because this was definitely very wine focused. This whole trip, we kept joking, is kind of like the pleasures of life, food and drink, and just all the beautiful things of life there. So the next part of our trip, it's all about eating, and we will talk about that in another episode. But yeah, all in all, would you go back to Alba? Would you go back to Piedmont?
Easily, without question.
Yeah.
And I think that I would want to go back in during truffle season.
Yeah, and actually do a truffle hunt.
I don't even necessarily know if I need to do a truffle hunt.
You just want to eat truffle?
I want to eat truffle. I want to drink more Barolo, Barbaresco, Dolcetto, everything, and just live life again in Piedmont.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Piedmont is such a lovely region. There's a lot of cute towns. Yeah, it's very beautiful. Do you have anything else to add?
Would you go back?
Oh, yeah, 100%. It was lovely. Yeah.
Nice.
Not hard to get to, just a train from Milan.
Not hard to love.
Not hard to love at all. Very, very beautiful. Yeah, highly recommend Alba Wine Tour is fantastic. That's a great way to get around because you pretty much do need a vehicle to get around. So it's nice to have a driver, especially if you're going to try a bunch of wine. But yeah, that is Piedmont. Be sure to let us know your thoughts. Would you guys go to this region of the world? Have you guys been? You can always reach us on Twitter at WWHoneymoon, Instagram at Worldwide Honeymoon, or email kat@worldwidehoneymoon.com. But thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to rate and review our podcast. It takes less than a few minutes and really helps other people find us. Also, if you're enjoying this awesome free information on both the blog and podcast, when you're booking your next trip, head over to worldwidehoneymoon.com/resources and use the links provided. We earn a small commission at no cost to you when you book through these links, and these are all brands and companies we know, love, and use, like Skyscanner for finding the best flight prices, World Nomads for the best travel insurance, TripAdvisor for hotel bookings and reviews, and even Amazon for all of your travel purchases.
Thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Wherever you are, wherever you go, remember to make every day a worldwide honeymoon.